For joining us on The World Now. Voting began in the early hours of today in UK's general election, and voters are to elect leaders of the House of Commons, which is the legislative arm of government. The House of Commons has 650 seats occupied by politicians referred to as members of parliament. We have more details in this report.
Across the United Kingdom, people are casting ballots in a snap general election called for by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Voters are to decide if the Conservative Party leader Rishi Sunak will remain in power, or the main opposition Labour Party leader Keir Starmer will become the new Prime Minister. The UK Parliament has two house systems made up of the House of Commons and the House of Lords, which sits at the Palace of Westminster. The House of Commons is composed of 650 members elected by the people. Unlike the House of Commons, the number of members in the upper house, the House of Lords, is not fixed. It is made up of life peers, hereditary peers, and bishops. There are at least 40,000 polling stations where voters are to exercise their franchise. To vote in the ongoing election, a valid photo ID, passport and driving license are amongst the acceptable forms of identity. The top contenders, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak of the Conservative Tory Party and Keir Starmer of the Labour Party, have held strongly to their opposing political views and divisions on administrative impact. Amongst several areas of contention, the Labour Party has maintained the Conservatives ruins the UK taxation system by further impoverishing poor families. Labour often comes hard on the Tories over former Prime Minister Boris Johnson's controversial COVID-19 lockdown parties that saw his departure from his top seat, and Prime Minister Liz Truss's departure from office over failed economic policies. Rishi Sunak has maintained his administration has provided hope for the UK economy by revamping it, improved on healthcare delivery and the nation's education policies. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his wife have voted at a polling station in Richmond, Yorkshire. In the United Kingdom, a Prime Minister sits for 5 years and is responsible for appointing members of the cabinet, senior ministers who are usually heads of government departments. The UK is overseen by a constitutional monarchy, meaning King Charles III is the head of state. His roles are largely symbolic and ceremonial. He grants royal assent on bills.
And for more on the selection of international interest, I'm joined by global affairs analyst Benga Onifade. Mr. Onifade joins us live from London. Interesting developments we are reading from London and across the UK. The latest polls are showing that the Labour Party is leading by 5 points, and some betting odds suggest a 70% chance of a Labour victory. Do you think the Tories can defy the odds and secure a historic 5th term?
I don't see this happening, not at all. I think this time around, I mean, oftentimes the opinion polls tend to be wrong. But I think in this case, the mood across the country is one for change. Not exactly because people want Labour. I think people are just tired of the same old rogues, if I'm going to call it that. So I don't see anything turning this tide at this moment today, no.
Well, Rishi Sunak is perhaps the 5th Prime Minister in 8 years. What do you make of this high turnover? Some say it's the highest in a century.
Absolutely, yes. You're right, it's the 15 in 8 years, and should we probably say, the 3rd in as many years as well. So it has actually created so much chaos, and this is not what UK is known for. I mean, the United Kingdom is known for their stability. So that I think, on one hand, the UK prides itself as, as a leading phenomenon, on the world stage. It's not, it hasn't got the same global presence as it used to, since I think this whole crushing defeat came from 2015, from the effect of Brexit, and to where we are now. But unfortunately, people want stability, people want long term. And of course, I think generally people are poorer. I know this is it's a standard around the world because of we've got this war and the COVID, etc. But I think it's just lasting longer in the UK, and people are just bored and tired of still complaining about the same thing about a decade ago, whereby most G7 countries have moved on, or the United Kingdom is still stuck in the same complaints and facts. So I think people just want to change, unfortunately, yes.
2 days ago, the Prime Minister tweeted this: once you make that decision on Thursday, there's no going back. Don't do something you might regret. What do you think he was trying to do here? Some have called it gaslighting, but that tweet from the Conservative Party leader, 2 days with the opinion polls, do you think that's able to salvage anything?
I mean, usually I try to maintain a diplomatic response. I do not see that happening at all. Unfortunately, they've got 14 years to make this call, to make this judgment. I will probably say it's a bit, it's a tweet a bit too late. He's only been there 2 years. Yes, things are turning around. He didn't cause the inflation, he didn't cause the war, but he was there at the helm of affairs. But unfortunately, he keeps talking about what the Labour Party will do. But people are said, you are overseeing the government that, with the highest tax rise in the last 70 years. You didn't do anything about it. There's been much more promises he's been making, but people just don't take it. So they're taking it with a pinch of salt.
The economy is the biggest issue here, topping concerns for voters in this election. What's the expectation from the next government in addressing rising cost of living and economic uncertainties?
Sure. I mean, the government is not responsible for the tide. Well, while they're responsible for fiscal policies, the central banks are responsible for the monetary policies. But they have to work in tandem, hand in hand. I think you've got to credit Rishi Sunak. He did promise, the inflation is going to get to just below 2%, or just 2% target. He has actually gone there. Even though, again, we will say it's not really his job. We would have thought this thing is actually turning naturally anyway. But again, interest rates is still historically high. We expect the Labour is just going to take it from where it is. There are talks of, rate cuts going on at the moment. Labour's going to have to they will take advantage of that and just take the praise. Is the economy supposed to grow? Yes, things just started to turn, and unfortunately, they are living at the best time. People expected him we're not expecting him, Rishi Sunak, to call the election at this time, and they've actually thought that's one of his biggest mistakes. So, is UK economy is going to grow? Yes, it will grow, but the key problem is, would it match the G7 competitors at the rates which it will be growing? And it's still growing quite slowly, but with what Labour are saying, of course, unfortunately, there will be some tax cuts. Rishi Sunak saying people should be aware of that. So some tax raises. He's saying people should be aware of that. There's no magic money printer anyway.
Some speculators have said the reason why we heard of the snap election in May, I think, was because the Conservative Party knew exactly that things weren't going to get better for the economy. But there's also the issue of immigration, which has become a divisive topic in this election. How concerned are you, particularly the task ahead of the new government, to balance border control with the need for skilled workers, and there's also humanitarian concerns?
Oh, that's going to be a big deal. I mean, Labour exactly are not known for cracking down on immigration. I think, prime minister since the days of Tony Blair, and we're talking 7 prime ministers ago, inflation's always been, been at an all-time high. Sorry, immigration's always been at an all-time high. I don't know how Labour's going to do that, considering Labour tends to be immigrant-friendly. We don't know how they're going to do that. Conservatives tend to be more tough on immigration. But again, unfortunately, there hasn't been, which people are saying, there hasn't been one boat which has been turned around. There hasn't been any expulsion. Keep talking about we're going to turn around this boat. We're going to build something in Rwanda, which is probably going to cost about, I think about £1.5 million each person. Just to return one person is not feasible. How concerned? I think everybody's concerned. Yes, immigration is quite high, but the other problem is this actually there's a huge impact on infrastructure. Infrastructure is not being built at the same pace of which immigration is being done. But I think Labour might probably just take advantage of that. I think UK probably got the key immigration that they need in key areas. Of course, they're talking about teachers now. Again, can they train them here? Where's the money going to come from? Unfortunately, I don't expect any big break right now, because I think the key thing is people want the economy to turn around, and Labour can start channeling that money. Labour keep talking about, for example, 70,000 new teachers. Where are you going to get that from? Again, it's got to come from outside. It's all about the balancing act. But I think one key point Labour is talking about is the win tax. So trying to tax the rich, the wealthy companies to fund some of these things. We'll see how that's going to happen.
Well, I don't think that the Tories are facing an isolated problem. You saw what happened in South Africa and France. Incumbent parties seem to be having a great stiff challenges this day. They say it is a result of the global economic challenge. But what message do you think the outcome of this election will send to the European Union and indeed the global community? And how do you think it will impact your case international relations?
I mean, to be honest, I think it's a rising tide. Number one, I've got to say, from all the way from America, now into Europe, no country has actually been able to succeed from COVID government. Everyone's actually been unseated. We're talking about Tony Blair, Donald Trump was unseated, and back to the UK as well. And UK is not exactly a member of the EU. I think the key worry for the EU right now, everyone's more concerned about stability with Israel and Gaza. Labour, exactly, they're more or less not different from Tory when it comes to relationship with the European Union and France. So I don't see any mega shifts at all. And you're right, with everyone moving to the far right, I think one more thing is the fact that the far right policies are they're way too extreme. But it just shows that people are listening. The politicians are not listening enough, and I don't see them overtaking everything yet. Ground with reform in the UK as well, but it just shows that politicians are not listening enough. And of course, with the change of government still being the mainstream government, there might just be a shift, and politicians might just start listening or paying a bit more attention. Again, conservative, with them just getting about 102 seats, which is probably a crushing defeat in about 200 years. Even Rishi Sunak possibly losing his own seat in Richmond. I think we'll probably get a lot more new heads again, new key ideas, because they want to fight back, and that might be a big opportunity for them, and that might push the far right further back again.
What's your prediction? You agree with the opinion polls that we're going to see an outright majority in this election?
Well, I think this is an easy bet. Everyone is expecting that, yes. I do believe so.
Look forward to it. 10 p.m. It's how many hours away? What's the time now in the UK?
We've got the same time as Nigeria, so it's just about 3:13. Results start creeping in overnight, but I think by tomorrow we probably will be waking up to a new Prime Minister.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much for your contribution on the news this hour.